What's going on guys, it's Unknown Player here, and today this video is going to be your complete guide on how to level up as fast as possible and your fastest ways to reach the highlight levels of 385 and eventually 400, which is the absolute max. So I'm going to be going through in detail what activities are best to do at what levels and how to manage your gear to get the most light possible, and I'll also go over my best tips to keep in mind when you're doing your progression to make sure you aren't wasting materials and making bad mistakes that a lot of people fall for. So a lot of very useful tips in this video. So essentially, to get anywhere up to 340, you just use blues. Do general bounties, complete the campaign, patrol, quests, maybe the easier strike playlist, but just general activities, and absolutely do not open legendaries and especially not exotics when you're under 340. It's a massive waste. It'll be tempting to open these engrams, but you should definitely hold off and try and keep on moving through towards 340. Just use blue engrams. It's very simple and pretty easy to get there, but those legendaries and exotics will definitely come in handy later on and they'll make a massive difference. So the levels between 340 and about 355 is probably the most difficult and most awkward period, but once you're through it, it gets much simpler and much more straightforward. If you can get through this phase opening as least legendaries and exotics as possible, you'll definitely be set up with a really good advantage. It's not the end of the world if you do open some legendaries and exotics. Like I said, it's always going to benefit you if you save them. Opening a few isn't going to make that much of a difference, but try and save as many as possible and they'll make a massive difference once you try and get towards 385. So the reason I said 340 to 355 is difficult is because the blue engrams you get from the Cryptarch cap at 340, so they won't raise your light level. The ones that drop in the world will, but Cryptarch engrams that are blues will cap at 340, so you're still a little bit too weak to be doing most of the in-game activities like the weekly heroic strikes, the Nightfall, perfected Archon's Forge. So what I'd recommend you do is use all of your saved up materials if you have them. Try and use as many as possible, obviously keep a reserve. This is a very easy way to blast through at least like 15 levels by ranking up factions. So you can trade your motes, heavy ammo synth, and also weapon parts and armor materials to factions to keep leveling up. Obviously, you don't want to spend all of your materials, you still need a good reserve, but try and get as close to 355 as possible. Towards 350 would be perfect. So when you're grinding, try and make sure you've always got a ghost shell on that will give you bonus glimmer for the race that you're actually killing, most of the time being the Fallen, of course, being the Devil Splicers, but always make sure you've got a ghost shell giving you glimmer, and with the excess glimmer, make sure you're spending it on weapon parts or armor materials with the Gunsmith or Shiro 4. You then use those to trade to the factions and of course rank up. Do not buy heavy ammo synth with glimmer, that's a massive waste. Only buy weapon parts or armor materials with your glimmer. So for heavy ammo synth, the best way is to buy that with strange coins from Xur every weekend that he rolls around. Then you once again of course trade that to factions. So once you're in the 350s, things tend to get a little bit better and you can reliably farm the weekly heroic strike playlist a lot more and a lot easier. This will be one of your best ways to rank up. You get Vanguard packages, legendary engrams, blues that will drop higher than your current light level, 3 of coins, you've got your exotics, and those engrams will also get you Cryptarch packages as well with more engrams. So it's easily the best way to farm right now, the weekly heroic strike playlist. And one of the best ways to farm in that playlist is to simply farm Omnigul. You're not doing this to farm the grass, but simply because the blues and legendaries that she's going to drop as a boss. It's important to note that 3 of coins will not work on Omnigul. She doesn't count as an ultra, so don't waste those. But the blues she drops are going to raise you to 365, which can be really helpful. So farming Omnigul is a great way to level up. And also pay attention to the modifiers on the weekly playlist. It's currently Arcburn this first week, so things like the Stormcaller, the Zardo Supercell, and the Boltcaster Sword are all pretty effective. So farming the strike playlist and also Omnigul inside that is a really good way to get to 365. Now once you get there, you're ready to do the raid and basically all endgame activities. This is where you can do Nightfalls, raids, and of course Trials and Iron Banner when those roll around as well. This is where your main endgame grind begins, and this is where you start to open up your legendary and exotic engrams you've been saving. So if you got to this level with a bunch saved up, you'll be so glad you waited and didn't get a bunch of 340 and 350 exotics. This is the point where you open those, and this is your main grind. But 365 is going to be a steady grind up to 385, and that's where you simply just farm those legendaries and exotics. Like I said, if you've got them saved up, that's going to be a massive help. And then 370 should be pretty easy with the exotics, and then from there you just want to keep on grinding the strike playlist, and of course do the raid as well on normal, and that'll get you towards 385 with all full raid gear. And then obviously to get from 385 to 400, you need the items from the hard mode raid. So that is how progression works through the levels, and now I'm going to give you all my really important tips to keep in mind throughout this process to make sure you're getting the most out of your light level and not wasting time or materials. So firstly, open all your engrams one at a time and very slowly. Always check to see if the item can actually raise your light level even slightly, and then move on to the next engram, especially if you're being farming strikes a lot and you've got a massive pile of them. Don't just rush through. I know it's really tempting, but open them one at a time and then see if it's higher than what you currently have, and then move on to the next one and keep going through that way. This means that all your engrams are going to raise your light level, and the next one will drop even higher than it would have been if you opened them all at one time, and this way the loot will always be slightly higher than your current light level to a certain point. So it's important you have your best gear on when you're getting new items, and generally when you're about to get loot drops, always make sure you're as high as possible. Obviously, like I said, the blues don't really matter after 340 because they're all going to be capped at that, but the legendaries especially, don't open them all at one time because one of them could raise your light level, which means the next thing could be higher than it would have been at normally. So another tip, that mainly when you're grinding strikes, is to actually use the blues and legendaries that you get and actually equip them instead of infusing. Infusion is actually a massive trap, and it's very tempting to just grab a bunch of your gear and all the best stuff that you love and keep on infusing it, but you'll actually notice your legendary mark's going to go down so quickly, and you're seriously going to be wasting a lot of materials if you keep on infusing, especially for one light level. It's definitely a lot more worth it in terms of armor to just throw on what you have, and if it's going to raise you, just ignore how ugly it might make your character look, or if it doesn't have certain perks or inselect, just throw it on if it's higher and save the infusion materials, and only actually infuse when you know you're going to need it or you're going to be at a level for a while, like the raid, or if you're doing trials or something, only infuse when you absolutely have to, because it's really easy to just waste a bunch of materials trying to keep all of your gear up to scratch. So those are all of my tips, and that's my guide on how to rank up as fast as possible, what activities to do, and how to progress through them. If you found the video helpful, then a like rating would be much appreciated, and leave a comment down below what level you're currently in Destiny and how the grind is getting on for you. I'll be interested to see. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Of course, got a ton more Rise of Iron content coming out very soon, so subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.